Welcome back to Legacy Builders. Again, we have my mom on as a special guest. And so this episode is going to be all about marriages and the relationship within the marriage. So we've kind of got some random questions for you guys, and it's both of you guys. So I'll kind of be hosting, asking you guys some questions, and some of them are random, some of them pertain specifically to relationships about marriage, like it within a marriage. So let's just start with your guys' story. Like, how long have you been married? All of that kind of stuff.
You go first.
Because you don't know how long.
That would be bad.
Yeah, that would be bad.
We have been married for 23 years last November. We met dated and got engaged all within a period of a year. So we got married later, a little bit later in life. We were both on our own with jobs, right later 20s. Got married, been 23 years. We have 3 kids. We met through a networking business that we were both involved in, and saw each other at the meetings, and then we had some mutual friends at that meeting that, basically you need to meet and put us together and kind of set us up technically. And so we dated and got to know each other. And, I had been graduated from college on my own for 3 or 4 years, trying to figure out life, figure out where I was supposed to be. Wanting to be married. I went to college thinking I would leave college with a boyfriend, fiance, spouse. I did get a degree. It was not, an MRS degree, but I was not dating anyone when I left, and I was frustrated. I didn't want to get married at 35 or 40, so it just wasn't the right time and the right people. And so God brought Eric across my path, and there were too many things that matched up and met with, what I had been praying about, what I was asking God for, the desires of my heart, the different, check of things I was looking for in a godly man. So
you had a checklist of, was it 10 things?
Yes. So
and
there,
you met how many of those?
There's a book out there. It's called Knight in Shining Armor, and it's written by, I can't remember her name. It's an excellent book. And if any woman, is looking to get married, young woman, I would highly recommend this book. It just puts your mind and your attitude in the right place so that you're not desperately seeking anyone and any man. You're looking for the right person. And there is a part in that book where they say, make a list of 10 items that you really desire, in your spouse. And so that's what I did. And Eric met 9 of those.
Dad, anything to add to your story?
Well, just a little bit more kind of my background before Jodi and I actually met. Again, I think at the time I was 25. I think when we got married, I was 25 and ish. So, you start getting into your 20s, and that is you start thinking about, who am I going to spend the rest of my life with? And you start kind of assessing that and start looking around and waiting for that right person. And like Jodi said, we had both, independently, we're part of a business, and we would see each other at different meetings and stuff. And I don't know as though we really formally met. I noticed Jodi at all the meetings, so she definitely caught my eye. And start talking to our mutual friends, and her name would come up. And a little bit more of my story later. I wasn't ready. I knew the type of person I could just tell that I needed to grow. I still had some growing that I needed to do. And so before we would formally meet, I wrote a poem about it. Maybe we'll share that poem. later, but it was, I just knew I had some things that I still needed to work on in me, and I needed to grow. And we'll talk about this a little bit more, a lesson that we had learned later, not knowing, but we kind of did start working on becoming a whole person before we got married. And it's one of the things that we counsel our kids with later, about becoming a whole person and before they get married. So I knew I still had to become more of a whole person, to be able to provide for a family, support a family, provide the expectations and lifestyles that I knew Jodi would be expecting. And so I just had to make some adjustments yet. So then we did end up meeting, and we went out on a couple dates, and I'll never forget our first date. We went to with Brother Sebastian's.
Yes.
Yep. I went out and bought. I had to make sure I was dressed nice. I went out and I bought some new jeans and new shirt and everything. And
you're walking out of the restaurant after dinner, and I looked ahead and I'm like, he still has the sticker.
I still
all
had
the way down.
the sticker from the new jeans that you're supposed. It was clear. It was a clear sticker, and it still had the size on it. I had forgotten to pull that sticker off, so this whole night I had this sticker on the.
Yeah,
you did.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know at first.
That's
I didn't
true.
notice it till we had probably already been together for 2 or 3 hours. So
At least you put an effort for that first day.
Yeah, I mean, I would say we both had high expectations. I mean, of who we wanted and what we wanted, and I mean, I even remember, going. I don't know if it was that first night where we went after did we go see a movie afterwards, or was that a different date? We went to.
it might have been a different one.
Yeah, I went to a different date, and I think I asked Jodi if I could hold her hand, and she said no.
I was pretty hard.
Let me hold her hand during the movie. Like, okay, this is great.
I wasn't sure.
I didn't know that.
Like, I don't even know you yet, or like,
I think I did say that.
well,
I didn't. Yeah, I was trying to figure them all out, and I mean, I think in the back of my head, I had feelings like this could be right, but I'm not sure. And we
just want to take the right steps. Each one of us have to take the right steps in processing that out. And for me, I just knew I had dated somebody else, and I thought maybe we were going to get married, but it didn't work out. My attitude was always that God has the right person for me. And if something didn't work out, my attitude is always, and it's even to this day in life, that, okay, if this didn't work out, that means God has somebody better for me, or something better for me. Yeah. And so, Jodi was definitely better than the other ones I have dated. But anyway, that was just, we still had to work through that and make sure that even though I felt that way, we still couldn't rush it. We had to have a mutual understanding. There were just things that we had to still work through. I think you said we dated for
about 5 months or so.
We dated for about 5 months, but we were ready, and we then proposed, and we got married within. We met, dated, and got married within less than a year. Planned a whole wedding and everything in less than a year. I wouldn't recommend that. But again, we were. No, I'm saying that's not for everybody.
And why wait? I mean, why drag it on 3-4 years of engagement? Some people are engaged for 2 or more years. Like, just to me, I mean, if it's right and you're ready, unless you're younger and you're still, not quite sure because you're, not even 20 yet, then maybe you do need to wait a little bit.
I think too, like, part of your guys' stories is you did go and you did the prep work before you guys even met. So, like, you worked dad to become that whole person before you even met mom. And you had created your list, you were on your own, mom, and were figuring out, like, life. You guys were a little bit later in life. You had that yourselves figured out a little bit. So that makes it, I think, too, when you know who you are, a little bit easier to know when the right person has come along. Would you guys agree with that statement, or what do you have to say about that? Dad, do you want to start?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree that, later in life, there is hopefully in most cases more of a maturity, especially, at age 18. If my son, he's 19 years old, I wouldn't recommend that he, get married within a year. I would not advise that. Madison's getting a little older, lot more mature now, several years difference than Riley. That could be a possibility. Madison's more calculated, knows what she wants, and that could be a possibility. I wouldn't, say that would be a bad thing at her age. I think every situation, every person's different. But one thing that Jodi and I both did is I was a reader. I wanted to be prepared. Even if you've heard previous episodes, before we had kids, I was prepared. I read, I studied. I wanted to make sure I was prepared for that. I was prepared for marriage. I was prepared to understand my role as a man. Did I know everything 100% up front? No, but I had a lot going for me. I had a lot of information, knowledge. I was way more prepared than a lot of people who get into a relationship and get into marriage.
Well, and we did a lot of preparation ourselves. While we were engaged, we bought a couple, 2 or 3 different books that we worked through ourselves, that cover different topics that, need to be known before you marry someone, financial, spiritual, family, and parenting style, it's important to know those principles and what they believe or don't believe, so that once you do commit to the marriage and you're living together 24/7, you've already kind of covered all of that and can move forward, start working together through those different areas.
It's better to be more on the same page in those areas than not be on the same page and enter into, a lot of people get married, they don't find out how polar opposite they are just on money, how polar opposite they are on, well, this is how I think we should raise kids. Those two are some pretty heavy relationship breakers once you get married, if you don't have that stuff at least talked about ahead of time.
And I think a lot of people will spend their time planning the wedding. The girl gets so wrapped up in the wedding plans and all the details and all the fine perfection of the whole entire event that they forget to plan the marriage, which comes after the wedding. The wedding is just one day. The marriage is the rest of your life.
That's good.
So,
yeah. So Dad, you talked about earlier, the whole person concept. Explain to us what that means, what that looks like.
Yeah. So, and this was even more defined later. And I can't honestly say I was 100% a whole person when we got married. I probably would have studied some more stuff and worked on becoming that. But the concept of a half plus a half equals a whole. So if I get married and I'm a half a person and I'm going to marry this person, they're going to complete me. I think that's a recipe for disaster. I think and this is, stuff that we've learned from, some mentors and pastors along the way, that they've helped us understand how to be whole people. Because, when you take a half and you multiply it by a half, you're going to get a quarter. You're going to get 0.25, not 0.5. But when you multiply 1 by 1, you still get 1. And so you have a better odds and better chance at working through the struggles of life as they come, because every marriage is going to have them. Every marriage is going to have conflict. They're going to have things that they have to overcome as they get to know one another, as they get to know their habits, and they get to know, parenting styles, then just life situations come up, job loss, different things that we'll get into here a little bit later. But if you're a whole person, you're more solid, and you have the ability to be able to handle that situation is going to be way better than having to rely on the better half. I don't refer to Jodi as my better half. She's a whole person. We're one. The Bible says we're united together as one.
I just make you look better.
She definitely makes me look better. Yes. But, a lot of people, better half. I'm like, we're not half people. We are both whole people. We know who we are. We know where we're going. Is our relationship perfect? No, we wouldn't say it's perfect, but we do have a lot of good things. We do have a lot of things we can help people with. And that's why we're here to help talk about, how to overcome in some of those areas.
Yeah, that's really good. And Mom, like we were talking a little bit about how specifically some of the women kind of go in looking for a knight in shining armor, looking for someone to save them and complete them. Will you talk a little bit on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the name of the book, but it is kind of a misconception and a dream in a girl's life. They're going to marry the prince, and he's Prince Charming, and he's rich and has all of this stuff he can bring to the table to take care of you for the rest.
Character.
Right.
Yeah.
For the rest of your life. So, I think in every girl's dream world, but that's not the real world. There is, yes, Eric met 9 out of the 10 things on my list. That to me was confirmation this is the right person. But, I kind of went in with that same attitude a little bit, in the back of my head, like I'm going to marry Eric and he's going to help do this and he's going to help do this. Well, it's working together. It's both of us. It's not one person does everything and all the work and the other person just sits and enjoys. So, we had to kind of work on that when we first got married, that, we both have a part in this. What is your part? And I'm not here to just save you and save the world and save your life. And, my life wasn't a mess and I was not in a bad spot, but,
Yeah, and I wasn't rich, and I didn't bring all this wealth to the table, and so
Eric brought no debt to the table, and I brought the debt. So, we had to deal with that when we were first married because I had some student loans, and I think I had a credit card and a car. So,
but it goes with the same concept of being a whole person, like. You don't need somebody else to
right
you.
Exactly.
You don't need them to save you, like just being a whole person. That's
yes.
The concepts kind of go hand in hand.
Mm-hmm.
But I do appreciate as well that you he met 9 of the 10 things and that you weren't expecting perfection going in. I think that's a really good mentality, like even going into the marriage. Like, will you guys speak on just to those who maybe are looking for the perfect one, the hallmark guy to pop out there, Prince Charming, like what would you say to that?
Go ahead, Jodi.
I think when God puts the right person in your life, they become that person. When it's who you're supposed to be with, in your eyes, that's what you see. And you see the hallmark person that may just be the construction worker on the street. He might be, an IT guy at the company, but in your eyes, he can do everything and do no wrong. And that to me is true love. And it's the right person is with the right person. And I think if you expect it to be perfect and you have this checklist, well, I don't meet, everything on here to the T, I feel like you may be unhappy for the rest of your life. I guess first is you have to know, am I even supposed to be married? Because there's some women out there who God has told them, or they have decided, I don't need to be married to do what God has told me to do in life. And it's okay if I never get married. And I think once you get to that and get that question answered, then, what are you looking for? But we have a friend who expects perfection and wanted this and this and this, and he's still not married to this day. And I'm not saying you have to settle, but what's important, I guess, because, of a list of 10, not everything on there is, one's a godly man, goes to church, has a great family, has dark hair. Is that really important in the scheme of things? You can color your hair,
Work off. So I do have a follow-up question to that. You said in your eyes they could do no wrong. So how long does that actually last once you get married? Because
about a week.
Well, I mean, you go to the wedding and then you go to the honeymoon and you spend a week together in paradise somewhere and all, no jobs, nothing else but each other. And then you come home and you have to deal with, okay, like now I go to work and you go to work. Where are we going to, we have an apartment or a house that we need to pay for. And, oh, you don't like to do this way in the kitchen, but I do. And, there's compromise that has to be made on a lot of petty things. If people, what you had said was petty. They're petty. They're not important. And
how you fold the towels
is
not important in the grand scheme of things.
In the grand scheme of things, but it is what starts to create little arguments and controversies, and people have to have that win.
Mm-hmm.
But
well, and I mean, Eric and I are both oldest children, and there is a book out there that talks about your place in the family on where you're at, and so most oldest children are in charge and want to be right. And, so there's a little bit of this sometimes that happens. It's not a bad thing. We've dealt with it. It's not become really like a huge issue in our marriage, but.
Well, how do you work through those small little arguments that start to arise and not let them create a bigger argument or a bigger problem down the road?
We go to YouTube and we find out the right answer, and then no.
I was not expecting that.
I mean, which way do you put the toilet paper on the toilet roll? There is a right and a wrong way. So sorry if
YouTube.
Yeah, according to YouTube. Sorry if they got it wrong all these years, but we're gonna figure out. No, just kidding. You got to pick your battles, and
right.
That's the big thing. You've got to pick your battles. And if you're gonna win in the relationship and win in the marriage, it can't be one person's way about everything all the time. And so you have to start compromising. Really, is this really that important?
Yeah.
And just start communicating. I mean, you got to create dialogue and communication. And
and we had a principle: we're not going to bed angry, like ever. And so.
Has that stayed?
No.
There's probably been a handful. I mean, there's probably been a handful, but early on, that was what, we're not going to go to bed upset. We're going to work through this. And, sometimes it's late and into the night when you figure it out and get it resolved. But
sometimes it doesn't get resolved, and there's a timing for everything too, and so you just have to communicate. You got to work on things. And again, the goal is, like Madison, you'd asked on the question before, I didn't get a chance to answer on this perfection thing. The perfect person doesn't exist. Kind of like what Mommy said is, you develop and you grow. You're looking for somebody who has the potential to be that person. And you're going to know they have the potential because they already exemplify some of the qualities and characteristics of who you want. They may not be in their perfect state, but you got to look at yourself. Are you perfect at this point?
Right.
How can you expect to marry the perfect person? Are you perfect, or do you have some flaws? Do you have some things that you have to work on? If you're perfect, then I guess, sure, look for the perfect person, but they're not there. Because the reality is you still have some things to work on, whoever you are. Right. You just have to get over that. You can't put the demand and expectation on somebody else that you're not willing to fulfill right now in your life. So let's just get the perfect thing out of the way. I know you want to have control over everything, but you're not going to have control over your spouse. It's not going to work. So you got to be able to work together. You got to be able to work things out, and just know that this person has the ability and the potential to be somebody better. And I mean, I think I'll just say it for me, and Jodi can respond too. But Jodi is way better today than she was when we got married. She has grown tremendously, and together we have grown tremendously to work together better. I mean, there's times where we started to work on things in a business sense, or just even maybe a church group or something. We just couldn't work together for a while, but then we started figuring it out. And through trial and error and processes and elimination and communication and improving ourselves, improving our understanding, picking our battles, we start working together better. And where we're at today, I mean, like right now, Jodi does our finances for my construction company. 10 years ago, she was doing my finances for my remodel company, and it was horrible. We had to stop because we got in too many arguments just doing finances for my remodel company. Today, it's different. We've grown. We've learned some things. It's just a different point in time. So I know we've both grown, and and just pick your battles. The petty things start to go away. What was petty 10 years ago isn't petty today. You just grow. You just grow out of it. It's not important. You pick your battles. And if the younger you can learn those things, it doesn't have to be your way about everything. Just prefer one another, right?
Right. Prefer one another and be the bigger person. Be the first to say you're sorry, whether you are or not. I mean, be the first to come try to make reconciliation and offer your apology, instead of holding the grudge and grumbling about it, by yourself in the corner.
Yeah.
Just make an effort and get it fixed.
Yeah.
Because beyond the petty things, there are challenges. There are challenges that will come up in life. You don't know what they are, but
Right.
if you can't even work together through the petty things, now have kids and see how that works out. Then you have kids, and I mean, we had to go through a period where, Jodi had a surgery, like the tumor in her brain. It was a big challenge. She did all of our finances, trying to figure out passwords to accounts and get bills caught up and help take care of kids. And it was, this was a big challenge when you have these type of things. We weren't expecting one of our kids to have special needs. Now add a special needs child into the mix of things. That's a challenge. You want to talk about divorce rates just in general. Look at divorce rates where there's special needs children involved. It's horrible.
It's hard.
It's very hard. And so now how do you keep this relationship when you have these financial issues, these medical issues, the medical issues impact who a person is at the core. And we still have to grow through that. And then you're just a challenge with the special needs child. It's a challenge. And we still have to be able to raise two other kids and not have bias towards them. And so we got to be able to work through all of that. And if you can't work through putting the toilet paper on the right way or folding the towels the right way, come on, guys. You are in for some other challenges. You got to start working together. You're a team. Start working together as a team. This isn't follow the leader. You need to follow me or else. No, we're going to work together as a team. That's the way it was designed in the beginning. God created man in his image and likeness and created them to be male and female. So they would walk side by side in life, working together, not husband in front of wife. No, this isn't how it is. We're supposed to work together as a team.
You are the covering of our family.
Well, there's roles and responsibilities for male and female.
Yes.
Yeah. But as far as the team is concerned, I'm not the dictator of the family to tell you what to do.
Right. But you've challenged me. And it's been good in our marriage for some of the things you've brought out of me, like, because you can see in me something that I can't see in myself, maybe. Or I'm scared. So you see it and you baby step it. We're going to get there.
And that's where the unconditional love and the belief and, being able to see you, and it's not to say that we don't accept each other at where they're at. Yeah, we accept you, but we also see how the team could be better if each
Right.
one of us improves. And we can't, again, back to the perfection thing. I can't expect Jodi to grow if I'm not willing to grow. She can't expect me to grow if she's not willing to grow. So we have to have this understanding and patience that, okay, I'm working on it, but we're seeing some progress, and Jodi's made tremendous strides.
Yeah. So talking about that, like, so how does the relationship change through these different seasons? So through the season of going from engaged to married and living together, these life challenges, having kids, like how do relationships shift between all these seasons? Or do they?
I'll start. I guess, yeah, you can, they definitely change, and you have to make adjustments, especially when you have children. Now there's a balance, growing up when it's just me and Jodi, I mean, we have time. This is the only person that we're concerned about in our world. Now you add a child in the mix. Now we have to care for a child. Our attention goes here. Jodi's attention goes to this child. So now we still have to balance. Now there's this time that we had together is now divided between time with the child. Add another child in the mix, add a third child in the mix. Now you've got time with 3 children. One of them special needs. Now we still got to take time, and we still have jobs, and some jobs are more demanding. I mean, I've been business most of my life. I mean, I've had a few jobs along the way, but it's not, the jobs were 9 to 5, but when I started doing remodeling and construction, I'm rarely home by 5. And sometimes I'm doing paperwork at night. So, and if we're active in an organization or a church or trying to do business at night, we only have 24 hours in a day. And when it was just Jodi and I, that 24 hours, we had enough time to have our own space. She could have her space, but now you throw something else in the mix, a dog. I mean, some people want, have a dog in the mix, or an animal, or another job, business, their career is out there. Those start to take attention away from each other. And then, especially when kids come in, it is a big dynamic. And there's a lot of people who at the end of they like, oh, I'm just trying to get the kids to grow up and get out of the house. And all of a sudden they look over and like, oh, you're still here. Who are you? We still have been able to develop that relationship even through raising the kids.
But it had to be intentional.
Right.
I mean, we had to plan a date or a time where it was just us and we could have, the kids taken care of so that we can focus on each other.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing there, that there's more of an intentionality. The more distractions that are in the relationship at that point, children, not distractions, but I'm just saying distraction from each other. So there's other things out there. Health could be a distraction, just all of these other things. So now we have to make it more intentional. Say, okay, we need to focus and just intentionally set time aside where we can hire the babysitter so we can go out and just have some us time. And just, continue to build that relationship so we don't have kids, raise them up, get them out of the house, and then be like, we haven't grown our relationship all this time. I think that's a mistake. I think there does have to be that intentionality.
Yeah, no, that's really good. I mean, all of that. Is there any other life changes or anything that you can think of that would cause a relationship to shift or to change that you would have to work through as a married couple? If no, that's fine. We'll move on to the next question.
Well, there's always life challenges. You never know what it is. People lose their job, and that all of a sudden, one person, maybe you're solely dependent on both. Remember, again, the 50-50 equation. So if we have 50-50 in finances and one person loses their job for a while, that's half of your income gone. So I'm not an advocate that a relationship relies solely on one person's income. Or I think you need to balance that, but we'll get into that in a financial series. But one person loses their job, that's a huge deal.
But there are women that feel that they should stay home with their children and raise them, So that's something you have to work through as a married couple. When you start having children, who's going to watch them? Is it going to be you staying home, or are we going to pay for daycare? How does that work? Because that could be the loss of one person's income if someone chooses to stay home and watch the kids, which is an honorable job. And it's very, necessary to take care of those children. But it's also, we went through the debate too on, do we send them to public school or do we homeschool them? And, how does that look? Because if, we were to homeschool them, how will that happen? Who's going to do that? When will that happen? If we both have jobs, or does one person not work? It's a debate that has to be had, and a decision that has to be made on, when your children are younger.
Yeah. So we're getting closer and closer to time. So one more question before my final question. But what are some key components and key principles that people should try to have, or you suggest or advise that they have to make a marriage relationship work?
I would say unconditional love. We've learned that in our relationship. I have learned that more than Eric. Eric came in with that. I thought I had that until, when you get to challenges and you're trying to work through things. And that, and I also trust. There has to be a trust in the marriage that, he leaves for work every day and he's going to come back to me. And same with me. I'm going to leave every day and come back to our home, and trust that, he's being honest and ethical and moral while he's out and about in the day, because that's the person you're living with. So you would hope they're the same while if they're not with you. And I think communication is also extremely important, that there has to be, a communication where you have an open discussion, and you can let them know that hurt me. This is how I felt when this happened. Or, you're not taking everything they say personally and defensively.
Yeah, and I like that. Just, carrying on with that is, that's so important, the communication aspect of it. So many people in a relationship, somebody says or does the wrong thing and they just get mad about it. You're like, what did I do?
Mm-hmm.
And then, you try to, all of a sudden I'm like, I'm the bad guy. I have no idea what I did. And, at least let's talk about it. At least have an open communication environment where you can say, hey, when you said this or you did this, this hurt me, and this felt this way. Give me an opportunity to correct. Don't just get mad and then change the whole environment of the house until we actually end up talking. What ends up happening is later there's a conversation that happens. So why spend the time getting mad for hours, days, before you come back and have a conversation and clear the air and communicate the misunderstandings? Why not just go and as soon before you even take on the offense? Why not just go and talk about it? Say, hey, you know what? When you said this, this hurt me. This offended me. Then you can think, now if the other person responds and be like, so I don't, nah, we got another problem. That's a different problem, right? But at least like, wow, I didn't realize that. I'm sorry. I didn't. I'll work on that. I won't try to do that. So this forgiveness issue, this is a very, very important component in relationships, to be able to forgive and forget. Don't forgive, and then next week you bring it up again. Say, hey, you did this, a week ago. Well, I thought we were past that. I thought we forgave, because part of forgiving is you forget it.
Right.
And so, if you can do that, that's a big key.
Yeah. Well, anything. So final question, final thoughts. What are your final advice? What's your final advice on marriage? Your final advice on marriage relationships specifically? Any lost thoughts on that? Whoever wants to go first.
I would just say that buffer your expectations. I mean, I think there's so many times that we live life and we have expectations of everybody else, but not ourselves. We want everybody else to perform at a higher level than we're willing to perform. We have this expectation that our spouse is supposed to do things that we're not willing to do. Or this relationship, we have this expectation this relationship is going to be this Hallmark movie for women, or this, whatever for the guys. And it's just not. You can't go in with those expectations. You have to buffer your expectations. I'm not saying lower the expectations. We want to have high standards. Right. Having high standards is not the same thing as having high expectations. I'm talking about expecting the other person to perform at a level while you're okay performing at this level. Mm-hmm. And that's not good. And
and also you don't want to marry someone that you think you're going to change. That your expectations are here, but I'll just settle for this guy and I can help him change and get, to those standards that I have, because it will never happen. You cannot change another person. They can only change themselves.
Yeah, that's good.
And you look for the potential in that person. Again, they should show evidence that this person has the potential to become somebody that you may see in the future. Again, but don't live life as though you're expecting them to have patience, tolerance, a patience, especially. I mean, I had one guy the other day where I was out doing a lunch appointment with one of our vendors, and he's just about ready to have a baby. And he's like, so, we were trying to talk, and I told him I had 3 kids. He's like, well, so do you have any advice for a new dad? And I said, yeah. The best advice I could give you is have patience with your wife, because she's going to go through some things that she's never gone through before in her life, and you won't understand it. The hormones are going to be crazy. She's going to experience things within her body and changes before and weeks after. She's going to say some things and do things that you're going to be like, who did I marry? And just have patience with her, because she doesn't mean it. And she's going through stuff that she can't control. She doesn't understand them. And that's the biggest thing that I've had to understand and realize is the hormonal changes, especially in women, that it can be frustrating if you don't have that understanding, if you don't have that patience with one another. Man, things could get tough.
Yeah. Well, thanks guys for sharing on marriage and relationships. Again, we'll have an entire marriage series. So we're going to dive way deeper into this whole talk on marriage. And I know I have a lot more questions to ask about that. So I'm excited for that series. But thank you for talking on marriage and marriage relationships and how they change. It was a really good episode. So
thanks. And thanks to all of our viewers who stayed with us through here on Legacy Builders. And we appreciate you subscribing to our channel and liking our pages, and just thanks. So hopefully this is beneficial for you.
Thanks so much for joining us today on the Legacy Builders podcast. We would love to hear from all of you. Go tag us on Facebook and Instagram and let us know what the biggest takeaway from today's episode was.